Welcome to Fearless and Flawed. Today, we're joined by Andrea Engstrom, business coach, podcaster, author, and the woman behind the Bold coaching system. She helps women entrepreneurs build high ticket group coaching programs without the icky tactics, the funnel obsession, or a single dollar spent on ads.
Andrea has done roughly $2 million in sales in 3 years, entirely from relationships she's built on Facebook. No paid traffic, no lead gen agency, no cold outreach scripts. Just real conversations, a 4-part DM sequence she's perfected, and the kind of feminine energy strategy that actually feels good to run.
She's also just launched her book, Bold Confidence, last month. It's about women stepping into their next level and refusing to play small anymore.
And I'm Serena. I produce the podcasts and webinars that grow your business.
And I'm Sarah, an email marketing pro here to convert clicks into cash. Together, Serena and I are two women in charge, digging into the fearless, the flawed, and the fabulous journeys of female founders rewriting the rules.
So let's dive in. Welcome to our show, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Can I just tell you how much I love how you guys boldly talk about what you do and the clarity that you bring to the conversation of like positioning yourself? So I just want to acknowledge you guys do such a better job of that. Yes, than most people in the world. You have such a clear value proposition coming straight out of the gate. So well done.
Thank you. Wow, Serena, we need more Andreas in our life. Like, we are here to celebrate you. And look at that. Within 30 seconds, we are being celebrated and we will take it. Thank you, Andrea.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all about celebrating each other.
Yes, yes. I tell you what, like one of the things that has transformed my business in this last year was helping women to start getting really clear on what their niche is. And so when I see women who are already in that level of clarity that you guys have, I'm like, yes, because that's what's magnetic. That is what is magnetic about you guys. And it's something that I spot in the world because I meet so many women that haven't figured it out yet. So I'm excited for today's conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I've spent the last God knows how many years apologizing for doing anything. So it's taken me a long time to get here. So I appreciate
Yeah.
anybody even recognizing it. And I know a lot of other women that actually struggle with not apologizing for being taking up space.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly what the book Bold Confidence is about. And it was the book that came as a result of not just meeting a lot of women that had that issue, but also I created a coaching program. And that was what started my whole coaching business. And I'm excited to share with you guys like what that little bit of my journey was when I decided to start my coaching business. But it was really based on that experience of talking to so many women that were not owning their space yet, that were still trying to figure it out or had old stories that they were telling themselves about, that my whole life is about making sure everybody else is okay and not even taking the time to really think about what do I really want and what is the space that I'm going to own unapologetically. And when you do that, when you take that step of really getting to that clarity, it is not a turnoff, it is magnetic, right? And so we spend so much time apologizing for, taking up space or like wondering like, oh, what will people think of me if I am confident or if I come across that way, that instead we aren't taking the time to say, okay, what is the possibility that exists on the other side of me becoming bold, right?
And how did you get here? I mean, like, how did you get to that conclusion? Because it's a very strong observation. It's a very strong action plan. To write a book about it would imply that this has been on the brain for quite some time and that there's enough evidence that you've seen that this is an issue. How did you get to this? Where did we begin? Has this always been in your blood? Give us the high level kind of process of your journey to this point.
Yeah. So it is something that I would say it's funny that you say, is it in your blood? Because I was raised by an entrepreneur And so my dad is an incredible business coach. And I want to be fully transparent, you guys. I have an unfair advantage coming into this world because I spent about 10 years of my career working with my dad. And and the things that I learned from that experience were things connected to how to, it was how to scale businesses and how to help small businesses go from being a small business to like not just doubling their business. I watched him 10x businesses and help people go from, being like, a startup or unsure to like a multiple times turning over their profit and doubling their income, and then sometimes 10xing their income. And so for me, part of it is I developed my belief by borrowing confidence from what I saw was possible that someone else was doing. And I was his marketing manager, and then business development director, and then I got certified as a business coach. And but I was doing it in this sort of safe space, safe bubble, because I had a paycheck coming from somebody else. And so I'm grateful for that experience, but it also, during that season, like, I kind of got comfortable with someone else writing my paycheck and wasn't really sure, like, can I do this on my own when it looked like such big shoes to fill. Like, I don't know if I can be like him, or I don't know if I can be the one. And I got really comfortable with being a behind the scenes player in somebody else's business. And I looked at it as like, well, I'm really excellent at it. And what I've recognized over the years is that when you operate from your place of excellence, that if that is not actually your zone of genius, that you can feel really accomplished in the things that you've done, but it feels like there's a hole where we're asking ourselves, there's got to be something more than this. There's a knowing that I'm meant for something more, and I'm not, even if you're not sure what it is. But that old comfort zone of operating from excellence, which sounds like a great thing, is not your zone of genius. And what if your zone of genius is on the other side of you stepping into you being bold and owning your space and not just promoting someone else?
So explain that concept a little bit slower for me. Place of genius.
Yeah. So when I was in a stage in my life where I was trying to decide, like, am I going to stay comfortable, promoting someone else? Because I worked for my dad for 10 years, and I worked with him, and we even launched an agency together because I'm like, I'm really good at this marketing thing. Let's do it for some of our clients. And then over the course of a few years, we scaled that business and then sold it. And then I got into real estate investing. And then within 9 months, I was working for somebody else because my old comfort zone called me back. Because the coach that I was learning real estate from was like, oh, they recruited me. And that's very flattering to be recruited, isn't it? It's like, they're like, oh, we want to have you do this. And so pretty soon I did $2 million in sales for somebody else's business, building their dream instead of building my own. And during that season, I was meeting with a super smart woman. Her name is Mary Lyons, the Wealth Woman. And she recommended a book to me called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And in The Big Leap, this is where I really learned that concept of, there's zones that we operate from. And especially when you're starting something new, we're operating from a zone of incompetence. There are things in our life where we're like, I am just floundering. I'm not sure how to do this. I would say sometimes that technology is a zone of incompetence for me. So I got to like find people smarter than me at stuff that I struggle with a little bit. But there's a zone of incompetence, then there becomes a zone of competence. So a lot of us, when we start a business, we operate from a zone of competence where we're figuring things out, and then we're doing things that we're like, I can do that. And then some of those things start to feel like a zone of excellence, or we're working for someone else in our zone of excellence a long time. And then we decide to launch a business, and there are several things that we have to figure out how to do that we're either incompetence, competence in order to do the thing that we're excellent at. But then
See,
the next,
I've seen, sorry, not interrupting here, but I've seen so many women, and we've spoken to so many women that have obviously gone into business to do the thing that they're excellent at. And then the business has actually worked out to be the things that they need to learn. the bookkeeping, the recruitment, the operational side of things.
The email marketing, the podcasting. Yeah, yes. But that next level, and this is the key, is when you can identify what is your unique zone of genius and seek to spend as much time as possible operating from your unique zone of genius, that is where your breakthrough in love, abundance, success, your energy flow is totally different the more time that you operate from that. Because while the zone of excellence sounds great, when you spend too much time in your zone of excellence, what it actually leads to is like depression. Is this all there is? Like, I found myself crying in my pillow at night, operating 80% of my time from my zone of excellence because I knew that there was something more and I had glimpses of it. I saw glimpses of when I had an opportunity to be on stage. And I saw glimpses of it when I got to help a woman have a breakthrough. I saw glimpses of it when I was creating a systematic approach to helping someone achieve something that they didn't believe was possible for themselves. And then I could show them the way in a way that for me felt really easy and like, "Oh, of course, this is how it works." When you have those moments of spark and flow, and you're like, you recognize what other people find difficult actually is really easy to me, and I can help them very quickly feel amazing about what they're doing or have a breakthrough of some kind. That's that spark of your zone of genius. And when you experience that, operating most of your time from a zone of excellence feels very unfulfilling instead of that zone of genius. But the book, The Big Leap, also talks a lot about this idea of that we all have this sort of ceiling that we have operated from, that we're in our current comfort zone. And we have old stories that are locking us into that. And when you realize where those stories are coming from, and most of us, our old comfort zone is actually a place of relationships are hard, money is hard to come by, things are stressful in my life, things do not go well most of the time. That we actually find ourselves when things start to go well, we will do something to self sabotage to kick ourselves back into our old comfort zone, which is why when something really good happens, and this is what happens with me, when something really good happens, I want to go like have a dinner to celebrate and I will order food that makes me feel awful. Have you guys ever done this?
Yeah.
We're like, "Oh, let's go eat a cake. Like, everything's going great. Let me have a couple extra drinks. Let me have a slice of cake." And then our gut, like, our belly hurts the rest of the night, and we, like, ruined our night celebrating. And for me, like, I'm like, that's my old comfort zone where things are not going well, and I don't feel great, and I've done that. Or I will pick a fight with my husband. I'll just poke a little bit, and I'm like, "Why is it that when I have a great weekend, I will start a little tiff, and I'll just get cranky about laundry or something
Oh,
stupid?"
balance. We need balance in life, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, I'm like, "Oh, girl, that's my old comfort zone calling me back to that little, like, where things are hard, relationships are crummy, money's hard to come by, or, like, we'll overspend when money is good and then kick ourselves back into that old comfort zone of, 'Oh, everything's tight.'" Which feels uncomfortable, but when your comfort zone is uncomfortable, that's where you wanna go back to subconsciously.
So I want to take you back a little bit from what you were saying. You said when something feels easy to you. Now, I kind of smiled when you said that because I've had several conversations this week with women. And I'm not saying it's a predominantly female thing. I'm just saying I've spoken to women this week. And it's like we we seem to have this problem that because it feels easy to us, we shouldn't charge a lot of money for it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's so fascinating about that is it's actually the opposite that's true. When something comes easy to you, that is your indication that you are exceptional at it. And when you talk to someone and it doesn't come easy for them, that's an indicator that, like, that's your thing that you can actually charge a lot for because it is difficult to other people, but it's easy for you, and that also means you're pretty darn good at it. And so those are clues. When something comes easy to you, that is exactly what you should charge the most for because it is probably not what comes easy to other people.
Yeah, I really wanted to highlight that because that really that one sentence that you said really like jumped out at me. It's as though it was an echo from all the conversations I've had this week.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, like, when you hear a repeated message over and over, that's also
Somebody's
something.
telling me something.
Yeah, we call those green lights, right? Where it's like, "Oh, there's another one." It's something that's hitting your reticular activating system, that part of your brain that's telling you what to pay attention to.
It's the universe
Yeah,
prodding you.
mhm.
Andrea, I love where this is going, and that also, so if I can like if I can understand the excellence, the zone of genius in a nutshell, in like layman's terms, it's basically like, hey, find something you're really good at, something that like naturally comes. I have a friend, Nicole. Nicole, the way we met, she was just having a casual conversation with someone, kind of just uplifting them. To me, it was like witnessing it's probably the closest I will ever get to, like, a motivational speaker who they were just born to motivate, and I was, like, naturally attracted, like, "Who the hell is this girl? She's hyping this guy up. I'm feeling hyped. Everyone in the room is feeling hyped," and I met her, and I'm like she's like, "Oh, that was just, like, a normal conversation." Like, she believed in what she was saying, her energy was magnetic, and it sounds like, from this conversation, that would be referred to as her zone of genius. She was really, and I always say to her, like, people spend thousands of dollars and weekends and weeks going to, like, remote islands and to fancy conferences to try to motivate people and do something that you just have in your blood. And to Serena's point, many times she will say, "But that's just who I am." Like, that didn't take courses and money to achieve, therefore, it must be everyone's norm, and so if I'm can infer from this conversation, that's her zone of genius. She should run with that. She should charge a maximum, and she should live the rest of her life, happy and fat loaded with money, just sitting on bags of money. Like, that, in a nutshell, is kind of what I'm gathering, but then my other question is like, okay, but I'm a talker, for example, love to talk, but too much of a good thing, I'm exhausted, and the very thing that I love to do has now become if I have to fucking talk to another person, I am going to just jump off a cliff. So, the question is, how do we identify once we identify that zone of genius, right? We've got it. How do we maintain some type of working balance and some type of parameter and limitations to make sure that that thing we're good at doesn't become the very thing that burns us out?
Totally, totally. And so one of the things I'm really passionate about is designing a life that you love. And so for me, I've built a business today where I generate about $100,000 a month in sales working 3 days a week. And what I recognize is that I need variety in my personal life to fill me back up in the days that I'm not working in my business, that will allow me to come back to those zone of genius activities and be refreshed. And Serena said it earlier, the balance. We've got to also have the balance of being able to do things that are just for us. Because when you're just focusing on pouring out into other people, that is where, when it's like, yeah, I want to spend 80% of my time operating from my zone of genius, but the things that fill me up to be at peak performance, to be at my truest level of genius, are also really important for me to be able to stay in that and to not have those self-sabotaging things that I do that triggers me back into that old comfort zone too. Because it's not just about like operating constantly from, like, we can't just say, I'm going to operate every single day, all day long, morning to night from a place of peak performance. I have to do the things that allow me to recharge and have that energy and to get filled back up in order to approach that with my very best. And then, and I have this thing that sometimes, like, I will tell myself, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little weird and I'll talk out loud sometimes.
That's not weird.
No, okay, good, good. Um,
Perfectly normal. Do it all the time.
yeah, I will literally say out loud to myself, "I have done what I can, and that will be enough." And it's almost like a prayer that I'm just sending out saying, "Let this be enough. Let the good things that I've done and that I created today, let that be enough." And it allows myself to be able to be like, "That's done. Now let me switch into fill my tank mode, be with my family mode, love the other parts of my life without thinking about, more, more, more." And one of the things that I think is really, really important and that supports that operating from greater levels of zone of genius is making sure you surround yourself with people who can take on the things that are not your zone of genius. Because I find that the burnout actually comes more from it's the juggle than it is and like feeling like I have to do everything and operate and switching hats back and forth. Like, if I feel like I'm constantly having to switch and, like, having mental load taken up by things that drain my energy, I'm like you, I can talk all day, but if I'm also thinking about the things that I'm not that I haven't gotten done yet, that's actually the things that drain my energy more than me, showing up and doing the thing. And so it's that balance and making sure that you've got people that you can effectively delegate the things that you are not zone of genius and that are especially things that are not your zone of excellence even. Because as a small business owner, like, we're gonna hold on to things sometimes that we're like, "I'm actually really good at that," and it produces a significant amount of income. But it's also, like, the little things that drain my energy that I gotta get that off my plate or that burnout thing happens way faster.
See, I've always found I kind of take on the crap jobs, the shit jobs, the jobs I wouldn't give to other people on my team. I don't want them to do it because it's a shit job. They'll get the creative work, they'll get the fun stuff, and I'll be sitting there looking at bookkeeping that I hate and doing invoice.
Oh,
Ugh.
okay.
And
Can we talk about that for a second? Like,
yeah.
so glad that you said that because I ran an agency with like 30 team members and I found myself defaulting to like protecting their emotions. I'm like, I just want everybody to feel happy and like they're having so much fun being creative. So they're going to want to keep working for me and so I would do the exact same thing. And I do the same thing for my kids. I will not, like, I will do hard things so that they don't have to. And what I've learned is that for me, that people pleasing behavior, like, that was learned from my mama. Let me tell you right now. That was like, my mom would, like, she would overserve in our family. And so that's what love looked like was like, I'm going to take extra good care of everybody. She always would bring my dad food on the couch or like bring it to him instead of him having to get up and get it himself. That's their relationship dynamic. And I used to be like, ew, bleh, but then I found myself doing the same thing. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. But because we want to love our person well. But this is what happened. Like when I have kids, I've got 4 kids and 2 of them are adults and I have 3 grandbabies. So I've got adult children, and they both told me these are my daughters, they both told me, "I wish I had learned more adulting before I actually was out on my own, because I did things for them to allow them to not experience discomfort." I was like, "Oh, let me just take care of that." Mhm. And they're like, "I didn't learn to just take care of stuff." And then I have 2 younger kids that are 11 and 13, and when my son was 8 years old, he was the only kid on the soccer field that could not tie his own shoes. And my son is on the spectrum and was like he was just happy to let me do things for him, and it felt like a struggle to, like, help him learn to do things for himself, so I just kept doing it for him because I didn't want him to feel frustrated. But when I saw that he was the only kid on the field that couldn't tie his own shoes, I was like, that behavior is not serving him, right? And I realized that it is not my job to make other people happy. I'm not responsible for other people's emotions. That was a big learning for me, and it does people a disservice when we do hard things for them and don't allow them to grow in the way that they need to grow to become who they need to be. And so what I've learned, and this has been a hard learning too, is like in my coaching business, as I've grown my team, like I had that same instinct. Oh, if something hard has to happen, let me just do that. But I'm learning that that also stunts their growth and it stunts my growth. That the area that I need to grow to go to my next level is to get comfortable with sitting in the discomfort of someone having to do something hard. But when they do, their level of ownership, their level of confidence actually goes up, not their level of dissatisfaction that my job is hard. And it's a place of discomfort that we have to learn to sit in. But I recognize that my people-pleasing behavior was more about me feeling comfortable than it was about wanting them to feel comfortable because I didn't wanna sit in the discomfort of them having to experience that hard thing, and so I was like, "Oh, this is about me, it's not about them. I'm actually doing this selfishly to not have to be uncomfortable while they're uncomfortable."
Well, to support what you're saying, some of the hardest experiences are also the fondest memories at the end. You know, not being specific, but you know those moments where you go, "Oh, I remember that. I really enjoyed that," or "That was unique. That was different." It was all of those really hard times. Not always fun, but there's something about it, emotional strength there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Andrew, I have a question about this because this is really hitting home. Like I believe in everything you said. It makes sense. I guess two things I wanna bring up because I think for the listeners, a lot of us, especially we have a lot of female listeners, I think there's always that let me love you, let me show affection towards, making things easy, the bringing dad the food on the couch, that is my family to me. And then my mother is, she gives her everybody. And then she has her moments because she is very human where she goes, no one helps me. And the truth is, we say we try to help, but but we catch you on a good day where she says, I'm good, I don't need the help." And then because she is human, she has the days where she goes, "God, can't you just make yourself your own sandwich?" She might say that to my dad. And the truth is, he can, and I find myself having those same patterns of, on a good day, let me serve you and let me love you, but on a bad day, when I'm tired, it's like, "Can't you just fucking do that yourself?" But I recognize a lot of this does come from patterns we've seen. It also comes from the big C word, which is control, control, control. So when people come to you and you've identified these patterns, you've identified, hey, you're pouring into others, you need to pour into yourself. Sounds great. I can buy into it. But can you give our listeners, can you give us a framework for how does untangling that web, specifically the control, specifically the repeated behavioral patterns, like, how do we start untangling that? Because that is a lifetime often, a childhood of seeing this behavior. What's the first step to take to start untangling that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is like recognizing that the belief that is behind it. And so if there's something that I'm experiencing that's frustrating and then I can stop and say, okay, what is my belief connected to that? That and sometimes that belief can be something like nobody helps me out. Nobody if I ask for help, they're going to get frustrated or defensive or angry or they're going to leave. Well, where did I develop that belief that if I make someone uncomfortable that they're going to leave me? And I'll go back and I'll tell you exactly where that started for me, right? And that started or like a behavior that if I don't act the way that other people expect me to, that something bad is going to happen, right? And so we can go back to things that probably happened in our childhood. We could go back to things that happened in a failed marriage. We can go back to something that happened. And so we develop this belief and so say, okay, what is that belief? And then to say, where did that belief start? Go back to that moment and then ask ourselves, is that belief actually true today? Right? Like, and if the answer is no, like if I ask my team member to do something hard that they're going to leave, Like, or that someone won't love me if I make them uncomfortable. Is that true? And if we can say, "Ah, that's not actually true," well, what is the truth?
But even if it is true, even if it was really true, why? It should be that simple. I mean, that's what you would tell your friend, that's what you would tell your nearest and dearest. You would say, "But you don't want that. So why does that matter to you? Leave them. You move on, whatever."
Yeah, yeah. And so if you did call them to their next level and they didn't rise to the occasion, what is the belief behind that? Like, or the fear? What's the fear behind that? Well, that I won't be okay, that I'll be unloved and I'll never find love again. What? Like, is that true? No. Or that there's no one else that could ever fill that place. Like, it's not objectively true, but what is the truth? Well, the truth
So
is,
where does it come from? Why do we do this to ourselves?
yeah, a lot of it is that old programming. It's our old comfort zone. It's the meaning that we have assigned something. And that's the key, because two people can have the same exact experience and one will assign meaning that says that it from that situation. Okay, so just imagine, like, difficult situation and someone left. And one person will say, that means I'm unlovable. That means I will always be rejected. I'm not worthy of love. I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. Another person will assign meaning to that, saying, that person wasn't the right person for me to trust with that thing. And I deserve more. Both of those people, that's their perception of that experience. And the meaning that they assign to it will become the truth. And it will become a perpetuating thing throughout their life. And so the beautiful thing is that we get to choose our beliefs. We don't have to decide to continue to believe an old story. We can choose. If our beliefs don't serve us, we can change our beliefs. We can reframe that experience and say, what's the truth of what happened is, well, I learned this lesson, I became stronger, and now I know better, so I do better. And if we can reframe a situation or a story, and can I give you guys, like, a deeply personal example of this? Would that be cool? Like, I love the name of your podcast, Fearless and Flawed. I'm so flawed, you guys. I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness, I think I'm in the right place." Yeah, but, there was a season of my life, and I've been sober for 6 years now, and there was a season of my life where I had to go back and examine what were the things that were keeping me stuck? What were the things that were keeping me in this perpetuating resentment and addiction cycle? And I had to do some deep personal work, right? And one of the things that we do when we're getting sober is we examine, where are our resentments coming from? And what is behind that? And I wrote down on my sheet of my things that I had resentments about, because part of the exercise is you have to decide what you're going to take ownership of. From that situation, what do I need to take ownership of? And so I wrote on this sheet that, I had this there was this moment in time where, my sister was like, she was in a lot of turmoil from things she experienced as a child that none of us had any knowledge of. And she would act out, and my mom would, she would, like, tuck me into bed and she'd hold me at night, and after a particularly hard day with my sister, who's my older sister, she would say, "Don't be crazy like your sister." And I developed this thought pattern of, like, what if I'm crazy? Like, what if, and my sister's not crazy. But as a kid, that, like, planted in my head, and so I developed this, like, I spent, like, a lot of years, like, going, "I need to make sure that I'm the rock, that I'm not acting like that." And she's like, "Don't be like her." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever I need to do, I'm gonna be the good girl. I'm gonna be the one that it, like, always has it together, because that's who my mom needs me to be."
Tiny, tiny little seed. Tiny. A moment, a fleeting comment that
Yes, yes. And I said, "Well, what if that situation," because I was just a kid, and I was like, "What if that situation can I take ownership of?" And I said, and this is what I came with, right, is that I was expecting my mom to be the parent, like to parent at a level that she was not capable of. Because when I look back at it, I was like, my mom lost her mom when she was 9 years old to cancer, and her dad committed suicide when she was 11. She did not grow up with parents. She had no amazing example of how to navigate the situation that she was in. And so her parenting perspective came from a place of great brokenness. I was able to have grace for this idea that, like, my mom was literally doing the best that she could with the tools that she had in that moment. And my resentment connected to anything that happened in her parenting style and whatever, and my mom was a great mom, like, don't get me wrong, right? But my belief connected to that did not factor in that, like, I had an expectation of, like, as an adult, I was like, I had this expectation that my mom would parent in a way that she was actually not capable of. And so sometimes these situations in our life and the things that we develop stories and beliefs around are based on our own expectations of what should have happened instead, not based on reality. And so, in a world where you may be a gallon sized love person, but you're interacting with someone who has pint sized capacity, and then you derive from that situation that I am not lovable but the reality is they were not capable of loving you at the level that you were expecting or that you were pouring into them. But it was because we were having a capacity issue.
But it's missed expectations, it's different expectations.
Yeah, it's like what I was expecting, and they may have been showing up with their full capacity, but it did not meet my expectations because my capacity is different. And it may be based on what their life experiences are and their beliefs that they're bringing into that situation. But when we can be real and, like, go, "Okay, wait a second, that was not actually about me and my like, there's nothing that I did or could have probably even done differently," but to just have grace for the capacity of the person that I was interacting with when that thing happened. Now there on the other side of that is freedom that I get to assign new meaning to that. I get to say it's not because it's not because there was something wrong with me or whatever, or that everybody else is gonna treat me the same way or is going to do something similar and that nobody can ever meet my expectations. It's because, when we assign different meaning to things, it can change everything.
It really can. It really can. And I think so many of us take those little comments, those throwaway moments and and bring it and carry them forward with us. That I mean, 1,000 things have probably been said, a million different throwaway comments, but this one stuck.
Yeah. But the cool thing is that there's a reprogramming that can happen very quickly when you get introduced to the right thinking, right? So can I share with you, like, what happened when I made that shift from, like, working with somebody else to then, like, deciding to launch my thing and, like, in that process, can I
Well, we're supposed to be talking about yes, absolutely. This is what we're here to talk about.
Amazing, amazing. So, okay, so I'm working in somebody else's business, working really hard building their dream. And it was that year that I told you, like, I did $2 million in sales for somebody else's business doing things that I was excellent at, and I was crying in my pillow at night because I had seen a spark of that zone of genius, and I knew that I was meant for more, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. And so one day I was listening to a podcast where Amy Porterfield was talking about her book coming out called 2 Weeks Notice. And she described this time in her life when she worked for Tony Robbins, the biggest coach in the world, doing amazing things with amazing people, and was basically crying in her pillow at night. And I was like, girl, that's me. What do we do? And she said she sat in this room with Tony and these other coaches that were getting ready for a conference, and they were talking about what freedom looked like for them. And she was like, I don't have that freedom. And I was like, I don't have that freedom. And so she said she went home and she mapped out her own program and she put a date on the calendar and she said 3 words that changed my life. Bet on yourself. And I grabbed a notebook and I wrote at the top of the page, what would the bravest version of me do? And I mapped out how I really wanted to help women to step into their own level of confidence. And it was so funny because I'm like, I hadn't been confident to do something like that yet. But here I am. I'm like, I want to help other women because we're best equipped to help who we used to be. So even if you're just on the other side, like one little chapter ahead, you can help other people. And so I said, this is what I really want to help women with. And I put a date on the calendar and I called the people I was working with and I was like, I am so excited. I'm launching this thing. And I am confident I can do what I'm doing for you and do this at the same time. And they said, no, ma'am. If you launch your own program, you cannot also work for us. And I walked away from a $12,000 a month income working for somebody else's business to launch my own thing. And in the first 6 weeks, I did $64,000 in sales. In the first 90 days, it was $134,000 in sales. And I had a handful of women asking me, Andrea, how did you do that? And
How
I
did
was
you do that?
come on, girls, let's go. I'm going to teach you. And I mapped out a new coaching program and I was like, let's walk through this step by step. I'm going to show you how to do this. And and then the very first group that I taught, one of them did 55,000 in sales in just 6 weeks, another did 35,000, another did 33,000. I was like, it's not just me. This is going to work for other people too. And so that's what my business is today. But it took me taking that step to like say, okay, I'm going to bet on myself in a way that I've never done before. And I'm just going to teach something that I learned that I think could be helpful to other people. And I'm going to run with that clarity. I'm going to run towards what that future is.
I love that. And what would you say, high level, because this is really your system, right? When we introed you, we talked a lot about you having this model of going from, okay, I know I can get there. I just need to work the system, if you will. And it's your model that is tried and true. So obviously, without, it's a process and a system, but can you give us the TLDR to people listening? Because again, the numbers sound great and the passion behind it is there. What is, I guess, what is the unlocking that Andrea can provide? Is it just consistency? Is it a step-by-step process? Is it that your model contains, the working through past beliefs? What makes working with Andrea and the bold system different than, let's say, the thousands of other coaches out there that go, I have the answer? Because yours works, but why does it work?
Yeah. I think one of the reasons that it works is because we start with clarity. And, and I've been in other coaching programs where there's people paying 20, $30,000 or more. And there are people swimming around in that program that have spent that much money and they still don't have clarity. And the clarity is the key. And so before I ever invite someone to join my coaching program, I work with them for 3 days for free. And what we do in those 3 sessions, and it's just 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes. It is not all day for 3 days. I have a systematic approach where I'm really good at helping people nail their niche. And so I walk you through a series of an exercise with really deep questions that allows us to take that information and turn it into some possible niche directions. And then we narrow it down and we solidify it and lock in your messaging in a way that feels really magnetic. And so before I ever invite someone to even join my program, we are going to nail your niche and make sure that you've locked in that clarity, because when you have clarity, you can run with it. And so then when I say, okay, now let's do some market research, let's turn it into a signature coaching program offer. Let's put a date on the calendar for the first workshop that you're going to host. Let's do your branding. It all is aligned with that clarity. And so in my system, like I have 25 prompts throughout my coaching program that allow people to take the clarity that they got and very quickly be decisive with it and do things to create and to build and to like announce it to the world and start promoting it. And then that 3-day process that works so well for me to help someone get clarity, I help them decide what their 3-day process will be. What is your clarity jumpstart that you will do with people in your niche. And I have people in health niches, in money making categories, like relationships categories. So anything that is your zone of genius, you are like, I spotted one. I saw a gal, and she had this zone of genius. Like, if we can take the thing that's uniquely you and turn it into a coaching program where you have total clarity of what the result is you'll help your clients achieve and how you talk about that, the rest becomes like, now let's take that and turn it into your promotions, turn it into a very clear way that you convert leads. And then the four-part DM strategy, like the sequence that you mentioned earlier, that is so magnetic that anybody can do this. But that clarity that we start with is really the magic. It's what makes all the difference.
I think that for the listeners, again, like, we've had on business coaches before, but I think the listeners would agree with me in saying, like, this not only does it feel right, because I think that this is important too. There has to be logic plus feeling that something is going to move forward. Because if it lacks logic but feels right, that's, leading with the heart but not the brain. And if there's logic but not passion or not clarity, right? Because a lot of that has emotions tied to it, then you're just kind of running through the system. You're just running through a process without feeling it, if you will. So it sounds like someone comes in, you meet them, you do this trial, if you will, this 3-day process. And then from there, you get to they get to work your system. Is there a time frame? Because again, I always ask these questions because after we launched this, my mom, who was like the biggest fan of this podcast, she will call me the next day and she will start asking questions like, that Andrea, she sounded lovely. I understood what she was saying, but how long does it take to see results? Does this happen overnight? Is this a 1-year I'm trying to think, what would Barb ask the day after? And so I'm coming from that place where this all sounds great. It's making perfect sense. Loved your enthusiasm. I've loved your vulnerability. It just is like everything you wanna hear wrapped up into, like, a human being speaking truth to a situation. But I guess the question I would have after hearing about this system, and it sounds great, is, okay, how long does it take? And I don't wanna use the word guarantee because that's a very silly word to use, but what's the success rate? However you define success.
Yeah, absolutely. So my program is 12 months long because I actually wanted to include a guarantee. And so my guarantee when someone joins my program, and please keep in mind, I will only offer my program to someone that I feel confident that I can guarantee that they will start achieving at least $10,000 months in sales in their coaching business offer before they exit my program. And this is the guarantee, or we're going to work together until you do. And so some people take a little bit longer because because they're a caretaker of a parent with Alzheimer's. Some people take a little bit longer because you cannot run at the same pace as people if you are carrying other human beings' lives in your hands because you've got two little tiny kids at home. And so I want to give people grace to take longer if they need to. The fastest the fastest that I've seen was I had a student do $33,000 in sales in her first 4 weeks. And she, like, was already having people reaching out to her asking for advice in a certain area, and so she was able to reach back out to the people that were connecting with her and saying, "How did you do that? Can you help me?" And be able to, like, invite them to something. She also she wouldn't post workshop promotions or like, "Hey, this is my new Facebook group," the free Facebook group, and, like, she wasn't posting on her own profile because she speaks English as a second language, and she's from Colombia, and she said, "My family will judge me. I cannot post about this on Facebook." And so she actually did some things that I was like, "Well, you would have had a lot more success if you would, just, like, make sure your family can't see what you're posting and post anyway because you have a lot of friends that would wanna do this thing." But she actually was posting in other people's groups and got that kind of result, in just 4 weeks. I also have people that, like there was a gal in my group that took a little bit longer to get started and start making sales, but once she did, she started Like, I was like, "This is gonna be so big," but she was grappling with a little bit of self-doubt. She had lost her husband a few years ago. She was, like, stepping back into her confidence, but she was just quietly doing this amazing thing that I knew other people could learn from, and so I let her borrow my confidence. I'm like, "Yes, I see this in you. You could absolutely do this. Come on, girl, let's go." It took her a couple a few months to really get going, but she just reached out to me and she's like, "I had a $25,000 month, and then I had a $25,000 week, and then I had a $25,000 day, and then I had a $25,000 client." The level of confidence that she's stepping into is unreal compared to when we started working together less than a year ago. And when we say success rate, sometimes there will be people that get started and then they will reach out and say, like, I got a diagnosis or this thing in my life has changed. And I'm not going to count them as someone that's like, oh, that they're not a failure. They've just entered a season where they're just going to need a little bit more time because life is lifing. And so I don't count them as like this is not going to work for them. I also have people that like, we just celebrated it with a gal on our call this week. She's a hormones coach. So she's not in a money-making category, teaching people how to do something in business. Like, she's literally coaching women who are dealing with hormones and, like, perimenopausal and stuff like that, and she's like, "I've been trying to make this go for a long time," and she came into my program, and then it took her about 4 months, and then she said in the last 3 weeks, she's done $22,500 in sales. And we were like, "Yes!"
That's such a valuable thing.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's something we don't talk about. It's something that
Yeah,
doesn't come up in polite society, and
yeah.
it really, really should.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so there are people that are running everybody's running their own race a little bit, and my guarantee is, like, if you show up for at least 3 coaching calls a month, we got 12 to choose from. We got tech support calls, we got Facebook support calls, we've got small group pod calls for, like, smaller group accountability. We've got, big coaching calls where we're all celebrating and sharing some new strategy. But, like, if you're showing up and you're being coachable and you're doing the work, you will get the result as long as you keep showing up. And if you try something and it doesn't work the way that you hoped, if you're coachable and we can help you make tweaks and finesse that, and if you're willing to pick up the phone, and sometimes it is the confidence thing, right? Like, I have a gal that's she w- and it goes back to that belief thing. She was like, I am hesitating to like reach out to people because something that happened in my childhood. I was literally going through this process of, like, where did that, like, what's the belief connected to you not reaching out to someone? And she said, like, my mom was really mean to me and I felt unloved. And I have this belief that I am unloved. And her niche is widows, like working with women who have just lost the love of their life, because that's something that she also experienced. And so can you imagine, like, losing the one person who's supposed to love you forever and that person's gone? And so she's like, I have all these, like, old feelings of not feeling loved, but also the question, am I even lovable? Will anyone ever love me again? And I was like, as we walked through that process, I was like, the woman who just lost their person, what do you think she's thinking? Will I ever be loved again? And, and through that conversation, I was like, what's the truth? What is the truth that we need to claim instead of that old story? Because she was able to walk through that and say, okay, well, the truth is I am lovable and I have a lot of love to give. And the truth is that the women that I am here to serve need that m- more than ever, more than anyone. And the next day she hopped on a call with us and she shared, she's like, I did 10 reach like I reached out to 10 people and it went amazing. They were so glad to hear from me. And I was like, what an incredible breakthrough. And she didn't make 10 sales in one day or something. She just started 10 conversations that were really meaningful. And that's where it starts, because we're not just trying to sell things all the time. Sometimes people have some things that they need to work through. And I like to use the analogy of a tree, like a seed. And so the seed, and I have the pleasure and the responsibility of homeschooling my kids, because that's part of the freedom and the life that I've designed is I want to be able to, like, be present with my family, and I homeschool my kids. And so when we in our homeschooling, we study the subject of botany. And we learned that, like, no matter which direction you plant a seed in the ground, the seed knows to grow its roots down first before it grows the stem and the leaves and the branches. So when you plant tree seed, you will never see the roots growing up into the sky and the leaves and the branches growing into the ground. And it's because the principle of gravitropism is the gravity of the earth that tells the seed which direction to grow the roots, and the phototropism, which is to grow the branches and the leaves, everything above the ground. And in business, we want to see the branches and the fruit and the leaves. We want it to happen fast so it feels really good and everybody can see it. But the truth is, if you haven't grown those roots down, what happens to a tree if it grows before the roots, right? It will topple right over, right? It might be like fun and exciting for a second, but boy, that thing's going to fall. And so there are some women, even when they come into my program, that have some roots that have to be grown. And we want to give grace and space for you to have the time to grow the roots. Because sometimes we're in the dirty, damp, dark, ugly part of life. And we may just be like right on the other side of that. And we feel like we've been buried and we're just trying to reach out of it. But the truth is, we're at a place where we have to grow those roots. And if we can do that in an intentional, even systematic way where we're showing up for ourselves and filling our cup and doing the personal work, those roots are going to be what supports the business. And what's funny is people will work on the roots for a while, and then it feels like overnight there's like a switch that flips where whew, now it's just blossoming. And it feels like it took them a long time, but the truth is that they were doing the roots work.
Do you know what? I could sit here and talk all day about this and about your business and about you, but we do have to kind of tie this up a little bit now. So we have, at the end of our podcast, we ask the question from our previous guest.
Say she was like a sleep coach for babies.
Are you a fan of hiring overnight support for your child or not? It was that simple.
Yep, sleep support, just to be
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely be a fan of that. Because, and this is why, because, when I was, and I remember that season, and I've always been so blessed to have a partner that also had some flexibility and that showed up and could tag team. If you don't have a partner with that kind of flexibility and you're trying to do that thing on your own, that is so hard. When I launched my business, one of the first things that I did, because when it started to take off, I was like, there's not enough me to go around and I'm feeling tapped. And so I looked around and I said, what is actually draining my energy the most? And how can I get help with that? And it was not doing my marketing. It was doing my laundry and doing my dishes and grocery shopping and figuring out what is for dinner. And so I found someone local who and there's a part of us as women sometimes that I think, well, that's my responsibility. I shouldn't outsource that to someone else because what will people think if I'm not the one feeding my whole family all the time for all the meals and snacks every
That's
single.
what keeps us. That's what keeps us here. That's what stops us growing, because rich people invest money to
Yes,
make money.
that's
Okay,
right.
if
That's
you
right.
can earn money and not do your dishes, earn the money. Let somebody else do your dishes. Pay somebody.
That's right. That's right. And there's no rules that say that you have to do everything for everyone that you love in order for you to be a good mom or to be a good wife. But making sure that you and your family have the support that you need in order to be the best version of you and to show up with energy for the rest of the hours. What's a better way to do that than making sure that you're getting the sleep that you need? And even if it's like, and I'm remembering, and I'm grabbing my boobs right now because I remember this season where I'm like, if someone could just bring me the baby and let me nurse and then take the baby and do everything else and so I can just go right back to sleep, amazing. Because I had a partner that would do that, and I've had a partner that didn't. And I gotta tell you, it's a night and day of what your capacity is as a, like, functional human being to have someone that is in partnership with you. And no, like, no judgment on families where the mom is doing everything at night because the dad's, off to work. And like, if you're in a season, like, you guys negotiate that for yourself, but you should also have no judgment for yourself if you need to ask for help and get the help that you need to be the best version of you.
I love that, Andrea. It's funny because when I was looking at that question, I was like, "Oh, I definitely know that Andrea is gonna be like, get the help, get the support." I mean, there's some questions you're like, "Oh, I really wonder where this is gonna take us." But I think what I'm hearing is, like, there's this undertone, whether it's business, relationships, of break existing beliefs that don't serve you, i.e., I need to do it all. I need to be, serving all the snacks, doing all the breastfeeding, doing all the pumping, doing all the formula making, blah, blah. If there's capable hands around me that can do it, whether that's paid help or non-paid help, it sounds like through this conversation, again, I know, we refer to you as a business coach, but really this is some life coaching going on here. And I think for the listeners, for myself, for
She's the
Serene,
coach's
she's
coach.
the coach's coach. At the end of the day, I think a lot of what I'm taking away from this conversation is the idea of challenging those beliefs that limit you, that keep you stuck, that keep you maybe temporarily happy, but long-term frustrated, long-term resentful. And it sounds like that is in every area, whether it's if you're blessed to be in the motherhood space, or you're blessed to be in the entrepreneur space, or maybe you're just blessed to be in the 9 to 5 space and that feels really good for you. Great. But if it doesn't, because that's what you just think you should be, I think that's where you're coming in, where we're not suggesting that people have to, or you're not suggesting that people have to be the entrepreneur, that people have to be the mother who works. And there's plenty of mothers who say, I wanna stay at home. I wanna stare my baby in the eyes. I'm a new mother. I love changing a poopy diaper. Love it. Love it. Like, there's something really sick about being like, "Oh, yeah, my baby's bowels are good." Like, I wanna do that. But again, there's others that are like, "Can someone else do this?" Like, this is a very, like, rinse and repeat task. So, for the listeners who are just enthralled with you as Serena and I am, and say, "Okay, where do I get her book? How do I contact her? How do I, make the next season of my life as amazing as she says it can be?" How do people get in touch with you?
Obviously, they can get in contact with her via fearlessandflawed.com.
Of course.
But now over to Andrea to tell us how other people can reach out and not through us.
So the best way to connect with me is at andreaengstrom.com. And there's a couple of things on my site that are a gift to you. Number one, if described in the 3-day process to nail your niche, if that's interesting to you, you can click a link and it's going to book a call with one of my team members who's going to compare calendars with you and help you get that scheduled if it's a good fit. And the second thing is I host a workshop called 100K in 90 days. And I go through step by step exactly what I did to launch my coaching business and what I did in that first 90 days. And I'm going to share with you in that the 4Gs that we mentioned, the magnetic DM sequence. I'm going to teach you that. And so if that would be helpful to you, I want you to grab your spot. It's my gift to you at andreaengstrom.com. Oh, and there's a link there where you can also buy my book. You can find my book on Amazon, or you can go to my website, and there, you're going to get an option to have some book resources and stuff like that that are also my gift to you. And that's the key, everybody. Give away as much value as possible, and you will never lack opportunities to serve people in a paid capacity if you just show up and provide massive value.
And we will have all that information on our site in case anyone is like scribbling, "Where? How do you spell her last name?" We got you. We got you. But I have loved this conversation, Andrea. Like I said, I think that this is a space that many times, unfortunately, there's spaces that are kind of like buzzwordy and like everyone becomes a coach or a business, but then you meet the real deal and you go, "Well, holy shit, like this is life changing. This is transforming. This is not just a, nice title. This is work and a model and a system. And you have shown us, you've given us a glimpse that when the system works and the enthusiasm and the passion and the work, the personal work, the journey, the vulnerability, when all that is there, If the end result is a quarter of what you have brought to us today, hell, sign me the hell up, girl.
Let's do it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, both of you, for having me. I love your energy and the authenticity that you approach conversations is so refreshing because you're right. Like I've been on other podcasts where it didn't feel like quite such a real conversation. And I'm always grateful for opportunities, but man, I just love chatting with girlfriends. So thank you.
Thank you. This has been wonderful.
This is our highlight of the week, honestly. Thank you so much, Andrea. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to hear more about you.
Thank you.